Hello and welcome back to the Student Ministry Conversations podcast. We are so glad that you continue to follow these conversations that we're having. Today we are starting our new series for the month of November. Crazy to think we're already in the month of November. But we're going to be looking at faith and gratitude. Those should be kind of similar to last month. They're topics that we know a lot about and we think a lot about, but we want to always remember that as youth pastors, our goal should not just be to see students grow, but also to be growing ourselves. And so why gratitude matters. That's what we're going to be looking at today. I am solo today. I'm starting vacation this week. And so trying to sync up schedules became a little bit challenging with me on the road when Brent was available and different things like that. So I'll be solo this week, but we'll be back with Brent next week as we tackle faith and gratitude. So really excited to hit this series. I find it interesting, and a lot of you guys have probably noticed this parallel as well. It's interesting that when we get into the month of November and we think about gratitude and Thanksgiving, it's immediately followed up with Black Friday, one of the greediest holidays, if you'll call it that. And so why is it that way? Why does gratitude matter? Why does this posture of Thanksgiving matter to us as Christians, as youth leaders, in church leaders, whether you're volunteering or in a full-time basis? Why does gratitude matter? We'd love to hear from you. We say this every episode, but we would love to hear from you. Why does gratitude matter to you? We would love to hear some other perspectives as well. But let's jump right into the topic that we have for today. I think about gratitude and how that has transformed perspectives. I can't help but think like there are times where we can get so, in the weeds of ministry that we can forget that it is a huge blessing and honor to be called to do what we do, to get to work with students, to have the platform that we have. One of the things I was thinking about even yesterday, we do youth on Sunday nights. It's a Monday morning here. I got to thinking about like, as a youth pastor, and even being able to grow up in youth ministry, I got opportunities and experiences that I never would have been able to do as a kid. I grew up really poor. We didn't have the money to do a lot of things. Where we were going to get our next meal at times was a challenge, and my dad did the best that he could. But being a single dad, it can be challenging for sure. And so, the thing that I was always grateful for is to have a youth group. It gave me experiences. It gave me friends. I mean, most importantly, it gave me God. But I think about like ski trips and things like that we got to go in some of the places. Like the first time I ever left the state of Texas was through my youth group. First time I went to Dallas, which is a city I really love going to as a big hockey Stars fan. I love going to Dallas. I love the coffee scene. I love the art there and different things like that. My first experiences was a youth ministry conference for leaders when I was 14 years old. So I think about all those incredible opportunities that I got. And, I think for me, being able to then turn around and give those experiences to other students who maybe aren't in the same boat that I was in growing up, but they're certainly people who are similar and students that are similar. And so it's a pretty incredible blessing that we get to do what we do. And so I think from that perspective, it's important for us to consider what an incredible blessing it is to be able to do what we do and to have the platform and experiences and opportunities that we have. And so for me, that has absolutely transformed my perspective going into ministry, thinking about the fact that God would call someone like me who isn't the best with words. I tend to be really introverted and a little socially awkward. I'm certainly a nerd, and thankfully, nerd culture has sort of caught up, and there's more of us than there used to be. But I find it interesting sometimes that we can get so bogged down by the challenges of ministry that we forget to be grateful for it. And so maybe you're listening or watching and you're kind of in a similar boat where you've been going through kind of a tough season, and it's hard to remember the good things. Sometimes when we're so surrounded by negativity, sometimes it can be hard to be grateful for the opportunities that you get. That's what I like to look at it. Like a Sunday night for us, our youth ministry nights is an opportunity. And when you look at it from that perspective of I get to teach students, I get to be with students. And sometimes I get it wrong. But when I look at it from the right lens, from the right perspective, that I get to pour into students, I get to be a part of their lives, I get to tell people about Jesus, man, what an incredible calling, what an incredible blessing that is. And so I think start with looking at your perspective, and do you tend to focus more on the negative or the positive? And I do think that matters. Let me ask you this question, just to reflect as we continue through, is how should your life change if thankfulness became your default? How would your life change if your default was an attitude of gratitude? That rhymes, but an attitude of thankfulness above anything else. First Thessalonians. I am really struggling with my words today. Can you tell I'm on vacation brain? 1 Thessalonians 5:18 tells us to give thanks in all circumstances. That means giving thanks when things are hard. That means giving thanks when your job is not going the way that you think it should be. That means giving thanks when you have a parent or another leader inside your ministry, or a staff member who is making life a little bit more challenging. It's being grateful even in those times. When your kids are being a distraction across the office because he's also on vacation. Those kind of things. Being grateful that I get time with my son this week. That's a pretty incredible blessing, right? Gratitude ultimately changes our perspective. It recenters us on God's goodness rather than the problems that we're facing. I also think that gratitude shapes our relationships. I mean, think about it. Thankfulness builds stronger friendships and reduces conflict. It does. If I'm grateful for my spouse, if I'm grateful for my wife, my relationship with her tends to be better. But if I become bitter because of certain things, or I focus more on the arguments and the negativity that comes with relationships, I might miss out on some pretty incredible things that my wife does on the daily basis. I think about, you guys may not know this because I don't think I've ever really talked about it on our podcast, but maybe I did, 100 episodes ago or something. But I have epilepsy, and with having epilepsy comes lots of seizures. And there was a time in my life, a period of my life, where we just had absolutely no control over them. Medicine helped. I saw 5 different neurologists in a 5-year period, and more doctors than that. But as far as like purely specialized neurologists, nobody seemed to have an answer for me. And it took a long time to get it under control. And so I spent 5 years not being able to drive. That was, for me, like being in jail for a crime that I never committed. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but for me, being able to drive is a freedom that most of us enjoy. I love getting in my car with the windows down, music cranked up, and getting to do those things. It's an incredible blessing. The last times I had driven before I lost my license, actually a week before that, I was driving to Chicago for a youth pastor conference. I remember driving through Missouri, and there was this like farm village area, and it was like all these super cool farmhouses, and all the flowers were like purple and orange, and the trees, and it was in fall, and it was just such a beautiful place. And I had the windows down and literally was playing the song "What a Wonderful World" popped on my playlist, and I'm just sitting there going maybe 45 in this little farm village area, and what a wonderful world popped up. And I remember thinking, man, this is incredible. And then I lost my license a week later because my seizures got a whole lot worse. It might have been 2 weeks, but something like that. Like the last time I really remember driving was that. And so for 5 years, my wife drove me everywhere. I had to schedule everything I did based on whether or not I could get a ride to do it. It was challenging. I had to learn how to depend on people. I don't like to do that. I tend to like to do things on my own and to figure things out that way. I don't like to have to ask for help. And what I learned in that season is to be really, really grateful that I had people in my life who loved me enough to get me where I needed to be. That was a really, really challenging part. And a huge blessing is that we've gotten my seizures under control and I'm able to drive again. And that's been a huge blessing too. I really, really love driving. But man, I became grateful that I had to depend on people. And that sounds a little strange, at least for me it did. But I felt like I truly was in a prison of my own mind, and having to depend on people for something that I didn't ask for was really painful and was a challenge. Seizures are not fun, but I became very, very grateful that my wife loved me enough to never really complain. I think in a 5-year season, I think I heard her complain one time, and it was really just because she didn't feel well, and she needed to be in bed, and I had to be at church, and so I think that was the only time in 5 years, and I became so grateful for just the servant's heart that she had through all of that, and really got me through a dark time in my life because man, I did not handle it well early on. And so, I became very, very grateful for the relationships in my life because I realized that I needed people. I had to depend on people. I couldn't do it all. I had a really, really big handicap, and it's something I still have to pay attention to. But thankfully, God brought a lot of healing, and I'm doing a lot better now. But maybe you're in a similar boat where you really have to depend on the relationships that you have. When I think about ministry, isn't ministry all relationships? We have to depend on people. We cannot do ministry alone. It's literally like against the law for us to, be around students without having other adults, right? And so relationships are vital to the growth of our students. And I always think about, I like to try to get as many parents involved as possible because you get different perspectives, you get different giftings. There are people who are really, really good at cooking and love doing it. I'm terrible at it. And so I need those kind of people to come into our ministry and to help us. And so all of that is a huge blessing. And so I'm really grateful for that. So, gratitude helps shape our relationships. They model how leaders can express gratitude to students and our peers. And I think it's important for us to model that. I'm sorry, I phrased that a little bit weird. I've got my son kind of distracting me a little bit, and so I did not read my own notes well. But hey, again, we need help sometimes. Model how leaders. This is kind of our challenge for you guys in this section, is to model how leaders can express gratitude to students and peers. Utilize the leaders that you have to show that. But I would also encourage you, utilize some of your older student leaders. That might be high school leaders for some of you guys. I've got some pretty good middle school leaders that model even to our high schoolers. And so don't let age necessarily be the thing. But if you've got some students that are really, really good at expressing gratitude, have them model that. Maybe even have them do a devotional or a testimony video, or get creative in ways that you can highlight those students and leaders that are really good at showing gratitude, where they can teach that that gifting that they have to help the church. It's a beautiful thing. You get creative and utilize your resources, whether that's videos or in-person testimonies or whatever it might be. Find a good creative way to allow them to model that to your students in your ministry. Give up a teaching on a Wednesday night and let them model that. Gratitude as worship. Man, I love this. This is something that really resonates with me as a worship leader. Obviously, there's the song "Gratitude." We all know. We've all probably played it and sung it 1,000 times. At least I know I have. But it's an important song. Why? Because it gives us a posture. There's something about worship that grounds us and gives us that posture of worshiping God for who He is. And when we have a heart posture, an attitude of thanksgiving, it helps us understand the deity of God just a little bit more. We'll never understand it. It's a true mystery of faith. We all know that. But the more grateful we are for who God is and the things that He does in our life and the way that He guides our life, the better off we're going to be as leaders. And certainly our students will be in a better place as they grow. Like I can't help but believe, like, the sooner these students grasp on to these principles, the better their life is going to be as they get into college and their adulthood and being able to use the gifts and passions and the calling that God has on their life. Gratitude should be a posture of worship. Personally, I think it should be not only a big part of the start of your worship times, but also your prayer life as well. And so I think thanking God honors Him and draws us closer to Him. But it also shifts our prayers, as I was saying, from not only asking for things, but also praising Him. I love when I'm praying and I get the opportunity to. I like to start with, and I pretty much say this in every prayer in some form or fashion of, God, thank you so much for your goodness, your kindness, and your faithfulness. That is in every prayer I pray, no matter what the prayer is or no matter what the focus is going to be. I always want to remember that God is so good. He doesn't have to be, but He is. He's so kind. I mean, even when I'm very, very unkind to Him, He's faithful to me. I love that He's not just the. You guys have probably heard the watchmaker theory of a watchmaker who crafts this incredible watch and then sends it out into the world and never sees it again. There are people who believe that God is that way, that He created people and then just lets us do whatever because we're not robots. But what I love is that God isn't just a creator, He's a sustainer, right? He didn't see fit to just leave us in our mess, but He came into our mess and He continues to love us and to work with us, to teach us, to mold us, to guide us. What an incredible thing to be grateful for. Man, if you're struggling because you're going through a hard season, there's lots of negativity around you, or maybe a lot of negative people around you, and you're struggling to stay positive in the midst of that, think about that. Man, God chooses to reach into our messiness and continues to love us and to guide us through all of the hard stuff. It's something that we should be praying for, thanking God for who He is, and we definitely need to be modeling that for our students. Let them hear you pray those things. You can say, hey, God, I'm going through something really, really hard, but Lord, I'm so grateful that I don't have to go through it alone. That's a huge thing. Utilize that. Be honest, but also model that gratitude in your conversations. Lastly, I want to end on this. Every podcast since we started this season, we've been trying to add more and more scripture, biblical tie-ins. And so today I wanted to share Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7 with you guys, which of course should be pretty familiar to you where you're at. But it says this, and I'm actually going to back up just a little bit, go to verse 4. It says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Man, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication. Man, I will say in the month of October, I believe it might have been in September. Might have to go back a few episodes, but Brent actually talks about the way that he models the importance of not being anxious and instead being grateful. I can't remember exactly what episode it is, but it's in either September or October. But if you're struggling with that, I definitely encourage you go back to September, October's episodes and to listen for it. But Brent does a phenomenal job of talking about that, the importance of not giving into your anxieties and your worries, but instead to focus on what you're grateful for. I truly believe that gratitude is the death of anxiety every single day of the week. Gratitude beats anxiety and worries and depression. The more anxious and depressed you are about a certain thing, the easier it is to sort of go down that pit. But thankfulness, digs you out of it. Thankfulness might be the ladder that gets you out of that pit of despair or whatever you might be feeling. Gratitude does some incredible things for us. It leads us to peace, and that it helps us to guard our hearts and our minds in Jesus, setting our eyes, focusing completely on Him. So, our closing challenge for today is this. I want you, please do this because I think it's so important. If you're not journaling, please be journaling. List 3 things that you're thankful for every day this week. Every day. So that's 21 things at the end of the week that you should have, but 3 things that you're thankful for every day this week. For me personally, today I'm really grateful for a church that allows me to have some rest. That's my number 1. Number 2, I'm grateful for my family. And though my little one can be a little bit distracting sometimes, like me, we're both heavy ADHD, I'm so grateful that I get time with him and my wife this week. It's a pretty cool thing. And I'm really, really grateful too. I get the opportunity to go see my favorite hockey team tomorrow play Edmonton. And I don't know if you know a lot about hockey. Connor McDavid is considered the Wayne Gretzky of the modern era. He literally plays for the same team and is the same position and captain, just like Wayne Gretzky was. And so my son and I are really excited for the opportunity to go see him. And so as I mentioned hockey, he came right up to me. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I want to say something," but he's not going to. But we are really, really grateful for the opportunity to go and be together as a family, even if for a short time. And so, I mean, the vacation is kind of short. It's not like a long, like full week or anything. We're getting like a half week, but we're really grateful for that. And so, those are just 3 things just off the top of my head that I'm grateful for. And I'm also grateful for, I'll give you a 4th bonus one. I'm grateful that we have this platform in which we could have a conversation with other student pastors. We want to encourage you and just say thank you to you as a listener. I can't remember exactly what episode this is, but it's 200 and something. We don't get to have those episodes unless we have people who listen to them. And so we are grateful to each and every one of you for sticking around, for having these conversations with us. If you'd like to be on the podcast in the future, please hit us up on our social media at TalkStudentMin, or you can email Brent or myself at podcast@studentministryconversations.org, or Brent or David at studentministryconversations.org. We'd love to get into the conversation with you guys and bring you guys along. Sit at our virtual table and let's talk shop. This is what we love to do. We hope that you are encouraged, inspired by the things that we talk about in these episodes. I know I was a little bit rambly today. I'm by myself. I don't have Brent to keep me. Brent, we joke about it a lot. Brent does a really good job of helping me land the plane. I can go a million different places, and then Brent lands the plane, and then we go on to the next thing, and I move all over the place, and then he lands the plane. He balances me out quite well. And when I'm distracted, like I am today, I tend to go all over the place. So thank you so much for listening. If you have a favorite episode, please share it with your student ministry friends. And it doesn't have to just be student ministry, kids ministry, anybody who is doing ministry that you think can benefit from this. We would love for them to enter into the conversation with us. So until next time, we can't wait to see you guys again, and we'll see you guys next week.